Hello and greetings. Welcome back. This is FIL-AM Lawyers. I'm Ed Kinglet, and again, I'm joined by my attorney partners, Attorney Chester Ogsimer and Dr. Ray Gervasio. We begin, or we continue, that is, with the theme of FIL-AM citizenship, whether you are a United States citizen with Philippine interests, or else you are a dual citizen. And one of the most popular topics in our law practices is this concept of land ownership. What are the limitations? Can I own a condo in the city, or can I own a farm? Can I inherit general pieces of land? So to begin, we have Dr. Ray Gervasio to deliver preliminary concepts in land ownership generally.
Sure. Just want to start out by giving some statistics. In the US, there's approximately 2.27 billion acres of land, of which about 1/3 is owned by the federal government. About 60% is privately owned, and the remainder are owned by either state or public agencies and the American Indians. Now, direct ownership of real property in the United States is really not restricted at the federal level. There are some limitations, however, but really no restrictions. However, some states do have some restrictions on land ownership for foreigners. Currently, there are 6 states that have laws banning foreign ownership of farmland. Again, this is farmland. States such as Hawaii, Iowa, Minnesota, Mississippi, North Dakota, Oklahoma. But for the most part, again, federal ownership is not restricted. Now, according to AP News, foreign ownership makes up about 2.2% of farmland in the US and about 1% of all land in the United States. So again, with some limited exceptions, pretty much anyone can own property in the United States, even non-US persons.
Thank you, Dr. Gervasio. Attorney Chester Ogsimer, you are our licensed Filipino attorney. Can you please explain the limitations of land ownership with respect to your citizenship? For example, if I, for example, am a United States citizen, I am Filipino American, but I'm not a citizen of the Philippines. If I was interested in investing in the Philippines, can you go over some of the things that I would need to be aware of in order to invest in the Philippines, purchasing condos, things like that?
As a general rule in the Philippines, land ownership is restricted to Filipino citizens, and that is protected by the Constitution. There are, however, exceptions to this general rule. First, foreigners can own land in the Philippines by way of hereditary succession. And that means by interstate succession, they can inherit lands in the Philippines. The second exception is foreigners can own condominium units in the Philippines. There is, however, a limitation that the condominium corporation must be limited to 60% Filipino and 40% foreign. So that translates to the ownership in the units. It must not exceed foreign ownership. The third exception is for former natural-born citizens or former natural-born Filipinos, those who have lost their Filipino citizenship by naturalization. If for residential purposes, former Filipinos can still own land in areas for a maximum of 1,000 square meters, and in the rural areas for 1 hectare. For business purposes, former natural-born Filipinos can acquire a maximum of 5,000 square meters in urban areas and a maximum of 3 hectares in rural areas. So those are the rules that former Filipinos and foreigners need to know before they invest or acquire real property in the Philippines.
I'm assuming that with those 3 exceptions, yet a foreigner would still be interested in purchasing or commercializing real property. So the easy option is to become a citizen of the Philippines, right? And because if they're a citizen, then that opens up their options with respect to land ownership. So can you go over some of the strategies for foreigners who want to invest more? Could you go over some of these options for foreigners to engage in land ownership in the Philippines?
Oh, this is a common practice. The common strategy used by foreigners is to marry a Filipino and then buy real property and title it under the name of the Filipino spouse. The Supreme Court has this in several cases already that this is a circumvention of the constitutional provision or limitation on foreign ownership of land in the Philippines. So if you are a foreigner, you cannot own land in the Philippines, even if you name it under your spouse. So people went further in trying to circumvent this constitutional provision. Some would advise providing a side contract between the spouses. First is perhaps creating a sort of a loan contract between the spouses that the foreigner spouse provided the fund to acquire the real property. In case something happens, he will get refunded for the money that was used to purchase the property. However, the Supreme Court saw through this sort of strategies to circumvent the law or the constitutional provision. And so the Supreme Court said these contracts, side contracts, meant to circumvent the constitutional provision. The foreigner spouse do not acquire any right whatsoever because no right can be gained from an illegal act. No matter what type of contract you form between you and your Filipino spouse, if it is meant to circumvent the prohibition of alien ownership of land in the Philippines, then you do not acquire any right whatsoever.
Thank you very much, Attorney Oxmer. Again, thank you for joining us. On behalf of my partners, attorneys Chester Oxmer and Dr. Ray Gervasio, we are FIL-AM Lawyers, where we help U.S. persons with their Philippine assets. For more information about our services, visit us on our website, filamlawyers.com. Thank you and see you soon.